Hello and welcome to another tutorial from CamiPaige Boutique. I'm Brooke Tannehill and today we are working on a leopard print peekaboo with vinyl offset. This design was so much fun to make because the color schemes and font choices really are endless so that you can completely have this cup reflect whatever style tickles your fancy. I chose to go more vibrant with my colors and a little more cowboy with my font to reflect some of my more recent interests. But as always, all the products I use will be listed in the description below, and you may even find a coupon code or two that saves you some coin. Also, come join our exclusive Facebook group where you can take advantage of upcoming freebies and giveaways that you aren't going to want to miss. So without further hesitation, let's go ahead and get started. For this cup, I started with a fully prepped and sanded 16-ounce fatty from Parish Tumblers, spray painted it antique gold from Rustoleum, and then I mixed up 10 milliliters of epoxy for us to apply our glitter. The epoxy method is my preferred method for applying a base layer of glitter because I feel like it gives me a longer working time and I get more consistent coverage over the entire cup. All you want to do is just take the littlest amount of epoxy, probably less than 1 to 2 milliliters, and spread it on evenly over the cup. Once you're done with that and you let it sit for about 2 minutes, it's time to come in with your glitter. This is Pirate's Booty from Boujie Glitter Boutique, and I absolutely love this gold glitter mix because it's just got such a great sparkle to it and it has a lot of depth from the different cups that you could find in the mix. I'm just going to make my way around the cup, just sprinkling the glitter as much as possible. You don't have to worry about having a light or heavy hand. We are just trying to get complete coverage over the entire surface so that way we can have glittered perfection when we go to do our peekaboo with the different letters and leopard spots. I also am doing this cup during a live, and if you are a fan of cup making live tutorials, be sure to join our Facebook group because we have a lot of fun on Mondays and Tuesdays. Also, when you're glittering your cup, do not forget the bottom. And once you're happy with the coverage, go ahead and let that dry for about 2 hours and then seal really well with a clear gloss spray paint. I used Rustoleum 2X spray paint, and then it's time to move into epoxy. I did 2 coats of 15 milliliters of a little extra ink epoxy to get the cup completely smooth before we move into sanding. Once my second coat of epoxy is dry, I grab my orbital sander, and this is how I smooth out my cup before I go into applying the vinyl for my peekaboos and eventually the spray paint. This step, in my opinion, is one of the most important steps if you really want a beautiful looking peekaboo. If you don't take the time to sand your cup properly, you're going to see the bumps, you're going to see all the imperfections, so really make sure to take your time. I like the orbital sander, which is what I'm using here, because it has a nice rigid base that allows me to hit all the high spots without making the low spots even lower. So I just take my orbital sander, hold it in place, and then I just use my other hand to rock the cup back and forth to make sure that I'm getting a really nice and smooth finish. Also, when I'm doing this, I'm using 120 grit sanding paper, which is that circle paper on the bottom, and I find that this finer cut or finer grit of sandpaper really helps to make sure everything's smooth. It really gives a nice finish for the next steps. Since we use a chunky mixed glitter, I also take this opportunity to smooth out the bottom and make sure that that is also as smooth as possible because we all know that those chunky mixits like to be as jagged as possible. Then when I'm done with the orbital sander, I just grab my 80 grit sanding block and just touch up any of the spots that the orbital sander might have missed. Again, this is just kind of a nice finishing touch that I think really goes far with the nice cups, and I highly recommend it. Once I'm happy with the bottom of the cup, I grab my Dremel and my 120 grit flap wheel, and I make sure to expose a little sliver of stainless steel at the top of the cup. Now, I do this at this step in the process because typically I do it later on, but I'm doing it now because it's a peekaboo, and if you don't expose the stainless steel now, when you sand later after you have the spray paint on, it's not going to be cute and it's going to expose the glitter. So make sure you do this now before you move into spray paint and thank me later. Once all of the sanding fun is done, I take my tape measure and I want to measure the width and the height of the cup. And I do this here because this is going to serve as my template for creating all of the cut files and designs that we're going to be using for our peekaboo. I typically like to do it after everything is sanded and it's epoxied and I've got a nice smooth surface so I know the exact dimensions. Once everything is measured, I come into Design Space and I just add a square with the just shapes tool that is just out of the box. And what I do is I make sure to unconfine the aspect ratio, which is just a little lock before the measurements, and I type in what we measured for the height and the width around the cup. What this is this will be the template for how we fill in all of the different SVGs with like the leopard print and the mama that we're using in this design. So first I insert the leopard print and I just make sure to fill in as much of the rectangle that we've created with the leopard print to start off with. And then what I will do is I just move around any of the spots to make sure that I'm filling in the template as much as possible, because we are going to be wrapping this vinyl, so we don't want any bits kind of hanging over the edge that could interfere with any of our peekaboos. So I'm just moving the different spots around, filling in any blank spaces that might have occurred from the import into this template, and just making sure that I'm happy with all of the placement before we move on to the next steps. Once I'm happy with the leopard placement, I'm going to insert my Mama SVG. And if you like this file, you can find it linked for free in our Facebook group. But I'm going to insert the Mama, both the black and the red, like so the two different layers, and line them up. So I try and get them as close as possible here. But what I like to do is highlight both of them and center them both horizontally and vertically to make sure that we get that perfect offset for when we are lining everything up. So I'm going to get this rotated horizontally or vertically, I guess, size it the way that I want it, and then I'm going to remove any of the extra leopard print spots that you see here because we don't want to have anything overlapping with our peekaboo. Then I'm going to highlight the two mama layers and the template and make sure that they are centered horizontally so that they're lining up so that the mama decal will align perfectly in the middle of the cup. I'm then going to come back and insert some more little leopard spots around the mama, so it's just so everything is filled in nicely and I like the way it looks. The next part I'm going to talk you through because I don't think I did a good enough job of showing this in my video, but what you want to do is actually take the two layers of the mama that decal and you're going to want to change the red layer to black, because that is the part that we're going to want to apply to the cup to make sure that we lay down for the peekaboo, because the red is the smaller part that we don't want to have the offset. So you can see that I do it there. What I also did after the fact is I came through and I duplicated the black layer that's there, and I actually sliced out the red decal from the offset to create a mama outline. And if you want to see how I slice, I can show and link one of my previous tutorials. But once you have all of the things here for the peekaboo, you're going to want to select all of them and weld them together so that you have one completely laid out file that is going to be great for cutting your peekaboo vinyl. I cut this out with a 631 removable vinyl, and it's that wonderful neon green color, but it doesn't matter because we'll remove it. Then I laid down a piece of blue painter's tape as straight as possible, and I'm going to use this as my guide for laying down my mama vertically on the cup. This also helps to get everything lined up as straight as possible, so it's a nice little hack that I like to use, especially when you have words that really help to kind of get everything lined up and do the vinyl wrap as easy as possible. I did have transfer tape that kind of overlapped. Our design didn't, but it was just, there's a little too much stuff right there. So I had to trim the transfer tape back a little bit just to get everything to lay nicely. And then what I did is I went through and I started to really push down the vinyl. And I do this because I want to make sure that we have good adhesion so that we don't have spray paint going underneath the vinyl and kind of muddying up any of our design. Once I get it all laid down, I like to push it down, but then also remove the transfer tape as slow as possible because we don't want any of the vinyl coming off and not laying down the way we want it to. So I just take my time, make sure everything is pushed down very tightly to the cup, and then just slowly roll back the transfer tape as I move my way around. One thing I did do here is I removed some of the leopard spots. So if you look at the cup here, you can see that there's some of the leopard spots that are missing from the design. I did that on purpose because what I wanted to do is I wanted to make sure to put black spots on the cup to kind of get it a little more oomph to the design. And then once I printed out the offsets, I included those spots in the design, which I know it sounds kind of tedious, but it's really, really not. And then I just put them down, but I'll show you how I do that in a minute. So I'm just working my way all the way around the cup, making sure the vinyl is nice and pushed down, and then moving on to the next steps. Once all the vinyl was laid down, I took it outside and I spray painted it with Poppy Red from Rustoleum 2X spray paint, and this was in the satin finish. And I let that dry for about a good 2 hours before I came in and removed the vinyl. So what I'm using here is actually a dental pick that I was sent from one of my wonderful community members, Miss Linda. I absolutely love you. But I am just taking my time using the dental pick to remove the vinyl. And since I use a removable vinyl, the stuff just comes up so much easier. I also found with the dental pick, you can actually put it in the middle of the vinyl, lift up, and then you don't have to worry about scratching any of your spray paint. This was probably the easiest peekaboo I have ever done because I used this tool, and then also just focused on removing the vinyl from in the middle versus the edge. So highly recommend this technique, and I think it shows when you just take the extra little steps and then use the right tools with your peekaboos. After all the vinyl was removed, I cut out my offset. Now I said that you could slice the red from the black of the decal to get the offset. You could also just use the offset tool in Cricut Design Space and use a width that you like that gives you the look that you're going for. But I cut this out, and I really make sure to use a transparent transfer tape. And the reason why is I feel like it allows me to really see where I'm placing down the offset and get it as lined up as humanly possible. Granted, there's always room for error, but I really think that that works well. Now, after I had all of that placed, I cut out the missing leopard spots. So I had mentioned that I took some of them off of the peekaboo vinyl that we used. So I just put those back into the design, selected them, and cut them out with the black vinyl. And I am just using my X-Acto knife to place them down. And the reason why I'm using the X-Acto knife and not transfer tape, even though we did use the transfer tape on the mama portion of this cup, is because transfer tape always makes me nervous over just a spray painted cup. If I had a coat of epoxy, it would be different. And also, when I used the transfer tape on the mama cup, I did put the tape directly on my shirt first and then picked up the vinyl so that it wasn't as sticky. But literally just save yourself some time and use your X-Acto knife. And then it was time to do the offsets of the leopard print. So I thought the cup just needed a little extra design element to the cup. So I went back into Design Space and did I believe a 0.125 offsets, 0.125 inch offset, or whatever the ratio is, like the number that you put in. And I cut them out with just using black vinyl. And then all I did was I moved around the cup and just placed random offsets on the leopard. I didn't do every one. I just wanted to add just a little bit more of a design element that makes this look just a little more couture, I guess. I'm kind of proud of myself for using that word. But I just think that it really helped to bring the whole look to life, and it really wasn't that much harder. It was just lining up the vinyl, and I really liked that I did it so thin. I feel like if we would have done it any thicker, it would have just taken away from the design. And especially with all of this vinyl work, you can bet your bottoms that I use polyacrylic to seal all of the vinyl down. I think that this is a really, really important step because it prevents any of the vinyl that you just laid down from lifting, and it also means, or I have found, that you use less epoxy. So I put this on, let it dry for about 45 minutes, and then I came in with 2 final coats of epoxy, 15 milliliters each, and look at the shine on that baby. This tumbler is a cup that I made to be my own personal coffee cup, so I might be a little biased when I say that I absolutely love this design. I hope this tutorial inspires you to try something similar or even the exact color scheme, but it's so fun to make and super easy, but greatly impactful, and I think your customers would absolutely absolutely love it. If you are inspired by this tutorial, make sure to post pictures in our Facebook group because I would absolutely love to see all of you guys' creations. As always, thank you for watching. It really means a lot to me. If you like this tutorial, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe so you can see future videos. You can also ring the bell so you are notified of all future cup making goodies. Thank you again. I love you guys. Bye.